Hey everybody, welcome back to the Optometry Money Podcast, where we're helping ODs all over the country make better and better decisions around their money, their careers, and their practices. I'm your host, Evon Mendrin, certified financial planner and owner of Optometry Wealth Advisors, an independent financial planning firm just for optometrists nationwide. And on today's episode, I am talking with Dr. Aaron Neufeld. Dr. Neufeld is the owner of Los Altos Optometric Group up in Northern California. He's the co-founder of the popular ODs on Finance Facebook community and website, and he just recently opened up the Contact Lens Institute. And we talk about the whys and the hows of opening a specialty contact lens practice, in addition to and separate from his main primary practice. And we talked about how he thought through and planned for the specialty practice, the lessons he's learned through the experience, and so much more. And it was a lot of fun. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to me via email. My email address is Evon, E-V-O-N, at optometrywealth.com. You can check out all the resources mentioned in the episode on the show notes, which you can find at the Education Hub on our website, www.optometrywealth.com. And while you're there, you can take a look at all the other episodes and articles we've created, and you can also schedule a no-commitment intro call to talk about what's on your mind financially and learn how we serve ODs nationwide. And without further ado, here is my conversation with Dr. Aaron Neufeld. And welcome back to the Optometry Money Podcast. I'm your host, Evon Mendrin. And today's episode, I have an awesome, very special guest, Dr. Aaron Neufeld. Dr. Aaron Neufeld, thank you so much for coming on.
I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Aaron, and I'm excited to dive into with you the how and the why of starting a second specialty practice outside of your primary optometry practice. And this is something you did back in 2022 in opening up the Contact Lens Institute. And so hopefully a lot of this is still fresh on your mind as you're still going through that. So wanted to dive in with you, but before we get into that, just want to get a really quick background. Like what got you into optometry? Tell us a little bit about your career early on and leading up to now.
Yeah, definitely. I think what got me into optometry was just the fascination with eyes and also wanting to work with patients. Something I discovered in high school, carried on through college, and then eventually went to optometry school right after. I graduated optometry school in 2015, and I went to school in Tennessee, decided to move back to home base in the Bay Area, California. Jumped around a little bit in 2015 and then up until 2016. And that's when I purchased my first practice in Los Altos, California. And that was a full scope private practice. The previous owner was looking to retire, so it was a great transition there. I did that for about 5 years, and obviously I'm continuing to do that. And then along the way, started ODs on Finance, which is a financial platform for optometrists, which you know about. And then after that, the most recent thing was starting the Contact Lens Institute, and I did that back in August of 2022. So that is, as you said, very fresh and kind of a new experience.
Yeah, and what made you want to go into ownership? You could have gone a lot of different directions with your career. What made you want to get into actual ownership of your private practice?
Yeah, ownership was always a dream of mine, even going to school. It was one of the reasons that kind of pushed me towards being an OD versus an MD, just the ease of getting into ownership. And I think it really is the autonomy. It's just being able to practice the way you want to practice. I did work for a few people when I first got out, and I realized it wasn't for me. So there's definitely that whole just work lifestyle that played a factor. And then also you're CFP, so the financial aspects of it are definitely beneficial in the long term.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot. There's a lot of work that goes into it, a lot of work and a lot of time that goes into it, but there's definitely a lot of, along with the freedom and the ability to sort of shape your practice according to your own vision, there's a lot of financial opportunity that can come with owning a private business. And when did you actually purchase the practice?
Purchased the Los Altos practice? My main one. That was 2016.
2016. Okay.
Yeah.
So 2016, you've purchased that practice. Now in 2022, you decided to open up a second practice, a specialty lens practice, it looks like. And why open a second specialty practice? Why not just include that into your current practice? Why not go that direction? Like, why actually open up a totally separate second practice?
Yeah, I was actually kicking the idea around for quite a while. It actually, probably 2019 was when I originally had the idea. And it was floating through my head because we had some office space that was fully owned that we could utilize. It was basically empty. We had rented it out to a few people, but after a year lease, they would leave. And so I realized, hey, we could actually develop this and we could create kind of a separate entity. And why not try something new? And I think at a few Vision Expos, I actually talked to a few individuals that have specialty practices that they just do myopia management or they just do specialty contact lenses. And they were able to thrive with that. I thought, hey, that would be a great idea. I mean, I love doing specialty lenses. I do them in my primary practice.
Mm.
Both my associate and I do a lot of myopia management and squirrel lens fits. But what if we just had a standalone clinic and kind of just build our brand around that? And so let's see, let's back up to 2021. I was actually doing some lecturing for Cooper Vision, and it was lecturing to residents and contact lens residents. And I actually met a resident that kind of fit the mold because I knew I couldn't be in two places at one time, so I
Yeah.
needed an associate. And I told him about the idea. He was in too. He liked the idea. He liked the idea of just doing specialty, nothing else. We don't see primary care patients at the practice at all. It's only specialty contact lens. So it's very niche. It allows for low footprint, low overhead. When you think about it, all you really need is an exam room with a few pieces of equipment. So we're able to operate out of basically 500 square feet.
Wow.
And yeah, we're basically able to operate with less staff as well because we don't have an optical or anything of that sort. So really, it's just the doctor-patient interaction. We're able to spend more time with patients because there's a bit more reimbursement that comes with the specialty lens fit. So all in all, it's an interesting path to take, and really, it's just less is more. That's kind of the philosophy behind it.
Yeah. And do you see any marketing benefits to separating it out into its own sort of niche specialty in terms of SEO or just getting the word out to other referral sources? Have you seen marketing benefits to having it specialized and on its own?
Yeah, we've seen a little bit of benefit with ophthalmology. So that's where we're getting most of our referrals. And with ophthalmology, when they see that we're just doing specialty contact lenses, that's mostly the referrals that
Mm,
ophthalmology is wanting to shoot out to ODs, anyways.
yeah.
And so we were able to kind of solidify three referral relationships with three different ophthalmologists in the area, which has been fantastic. And yeah, just once again, showing that we don't even want to do glasses or anything like that has helped us get referrals from ODs as well, because we're not in the business of trying to poach their patients. We want to send the patients back to them
Yeah.
once we do their specialty fit. So that's kind of the model that we're running.
Yeah. And so what was then the process? I mean, you thought about it, you thought about keeping it within your current practice, you decided to go that direction. What was the process from start to finish like in from thinking it through, just thinking it through as an idea to then or doors open? What did that look like and how long did that whole process take?
Yeah, process for setting it up probably took about 6 to 9 months total when we decide, hey, we're going to do this. Of course, you file for your incorporation, first steps, the boring stuff, the paperwork.
Mhm.
And then afterwards, just getting the clinic ready, which actually wasn't a huge issue because once again, we were just moving equipment in and just kind of retrofitting it. The main kind of challenge we ran into was putting a sink in one of the rooms because of just how the plumbing was. But other than that, yeah, it was a lot of just kind of, hard work, a lot of grunt work, but our contact lens reps were fantastic. They helped us with trials and getting everything sorted out there. But otherwise, yeah, setting up the clinic was not too tough compared to a normal quote unquote clinic because we didn't have an optical and all of that. So
Yeah. I'm just thinking through like you started this separate let me take a step back in terms of the legal logistics. Like, is this a separate corporation, completely separate from your primary practice? Are these two corporations held by another? How did you set that up from a legal perspective?
yeah, so that's actually a great question. I first of all, and what my accountants were telling me was just to put it all under the same entity, but I decided against that, and it's actually its whole separate corporation. And the reason being is the model I want to pursue with this, since I'm not really in the office too often, it's mainly my associate, is I did want to offer a potential ownership stake to my associate.
Ah,
And it's written out in our contract. So over a period of time, we would become partners. Whether or not he's going to pursue that, that's completely up to him, and it's too early to tell. But in order to just make it cleaner with my main practice, we decided to just kind of
yeah.
split it up. Yeah.
Yeah, that really highlights like when you're choosing when you're making any business entity decision, whether it's choosing which entity to use, whether it's choosing how to separate or merge entities, there's a lot more to it than taxes. You think about what are the future buy-in considerations. There's definitely a lot more to that. And what did your team look like, your professional team look like as you were putting it together? You mentioned a tax professional. Did you have an attorney, a real estate broker? Like who was involved with you in getting this started?
Yeah, definitely. So we have our accountant, also have a bookkeeper as well. Accountant's a CPA.
Yeah.
And I do have an attorney that I refer to if I need the help. But really, those were the only three individuals because at this point, the building had already been owned and paid off. So we didn't really need anyone real estate related. So just the taxes and the legality, that was the main issues.
Got it.
And
Okay.
I got to give a quick shout out to Chris Lopez. He actually wrote the contract for my associate.
Oh.
Yeah, so
Awesome. Okay. And it sounds like this is you're setting up a cold start. I mean, it sounds like you're starting from scratch, setting up a new practice, very much like you would go through the cold start process, except everything about the build out and what you need inside the practice is for your specialty niche. How did you look at the math and the feasibility behind this idea? Because you could have just continued to grow, like we talked about earlier. You could have just continued to grow your current practice. You could have continued to expand that, to add on to it. How did you look at the math and the numbers behind saying, okay, is this idea feasible? How did you forecast it? What did you do from the math standpoint?
yeah, definitely. I guess I'll go back to the main practice. One of the issues we didn't expand at this point, we currently operate 5 days a week. I've got two doctors in here at all times, and we don't have the square footage to expand anymore. We're in downtown Los Altos, spaces at a premium, and we were lucky that I was able to purchase the building that we're in. But yeah, there's basically no more room since we're in downtown. So we've got that cap, and then when we looked at starting the new practice, once again, specialty contact lenses, just the economics of them, the reimbursement is often between think about 8 to 12 of your regular patients. That's what you can get out of one specialty patient. So we realized that we've got kind of a higher net, not a lot of overhead because we're not holding a lot of inventory per se. Everything's custom ordered based on the patient. And then when you've got real estate that you're not paying rent on, of course, in California, that's probably our biggest expense is rent. And then also when you don't have staff, we pay a lot more for staff here just because of living expenses. Really, it's just your associate doctor seeing a patient every hour and a half to 2 hours. And he's not minding it either because, it's not a super high volume schedule. It ends up working out well because really our main expenses are obviously compensating him, cost of lenses, and the cost to keep the lights on and the phones on. So
lower fixed costs make that new investment, or I guess the risk involved, much lower as you're getting that started. And you did write a little while back an article for the Review of Optometric Business, How I Conduct Financial Forecasts. Was that sort of reflective of how you looked at the math behind getting this new practice started?
Yeah, actually, I had the idea of the practice in my mind when I wrote that. I believe I wrote that with Eric Matai, if I'm recalling right. Yeah, and then he was trying to launch his whole practice forecast, which has done very well, by the way. But yeah, that was the idea. Was just we wanted to be profitable within 6 months. I think that's what I was trying to write the forecast for. Yeah. And obviously, the numbers are a little bit, trying to put it in our favor. But that was the idea, was to get there. And what's the quickest way to get there? Obviously, growth is fantastic. And I think growth is talked about a lot. And I don't know if you've ever read the book, The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek.
No.
It's a great book. And he actually, in one of the chapters, he talks about how we talk about growth, but talking about growth doesn't necessarily mean that you have an endpoint. And it doesn't mean that you can actually get to a point of sustainability. And so we have to look at kind of what our bottom line is, and are we producing net income and all that good stuff.
Got it.
That's kind of how we looked at it, was, hey, we're going to grow, but we're also going to keep costs low. So we don't mind growing slowly as long as we're able to stay in the green.
Right. So you're not thinking about growth at any expense. You're thinking about growth in a sustainable business over time.
Exactly.
And I think that just highlights, Eric Matai, who you wrote that, or at least partnered with there. He'll talk all the time about, in any cold start, a big part of that early step is getting that financial feasibility forecast down and sort of at least getting your mind around, okay, what are the potential outcomes here? Good, bad, what is actually going to be involved in the expense side of running this new business, on the revenue side, what's required to get you to a break-even point, and then both on a monthly basis and just in total, being profitable. That forecasting is so important, at least to give yourself an idea of, okay, is this actually possible? What are the range of outcomes here? What could make this go really well? What could in reality make this go really bad? And am I prepared for that? So I really like the way I'll post a link to that in the show notes, but I really like the way you laid that out. Really simple for anyone to sort of take that template approach and follow that. And when you think about this process now, doors are open. How are you measuring success? Like, what are you looking at to say, okay, is this practice profitable, or not even profitable yet if you're in the early days, but is this practice successful? What are some of those things you're looking at?
Yeah, besides looking at the hard numbers, really are we able to bring patients into the practice? How are we able to treat patients? Are we getting successful fits? Because that's obviously a big part of how this is running. And then are we able to establish those referral relationships? And so that's been a big part of our first 6 months, has been just developing referral relationships. So our first month, my associate basically visited every optometrist and ophthalmologist in the Bay Area, and
Wow.
also every pediatrician as well. I also did it as well, so I would do it on days where I wasn't at either one of the clinics. So a lot of grassroots efforts there. We recently put on a 2-hour CE program for optometrists in the area. Got a pretty good attendance, got about 100 of them coming in. So yeah, just ways to kind of give to the community and show that we're here. We're here to see patients that they want to refer, but we're also here to help. My associate's happy to answer any questions that another practitioner might have about the specialty ones. We're all in this together. Optometry is a community effort. It's not just the two of us. So
Yeah.
we're just getting out there.
And how did you, you've talked about some of the things here, but how did you market this new practice? You talked about boots on the ground, like actually, like that's not something you learned in optometry school. You boots on the ground, getting to know the other professionals in the area, getting to grow referral sources, networking, CEs, putting on CEs. I mean, how did you then, in addition to that, go on to market the practice?
Yeah, we did a lot of online marketing as well. So I love using social media marketing. I use that a lot for my practice. We use it a lot for Modis on Finance. So we did a bit of that we have a fantastic website. Shout out to Roya for building it. So that's got some really good SEO on it. Michael, my associate, has been writing a lot of blogs, just a lot of content for that website. So just trying to get that SEO footprint going. And of course, Google AdWords. We're trying to do everything digital. With my practice here, my main practice, we do a lot of mailings. That's because we've been around the community for a long period of time. But with our new contact lens institute, we're trying to just stay with the new. So we've been doing a lot of digital marketing as well. But I will say most of our business comes from referrals. That's just the number one, because we oftentimes need a primary care practitioner to identify what needs to be a specialty fit, and then they're able to send that over, and that gives us a good triage, gives us a good kind of funnel to the patients that we need.
Yeah. And how do you manage your time between managing the two locations? You're not practicing a whole lot or at all in the new clinic. I mean, how do you look at managing the growth and everything that's really involved in growing and managing two businesses? What does that look like for you?
Yeah. I'll say that, I probably spend 4 days of my week at my main optometry practice. And then I will spend about 1 day a week at the Contact Lens Institute. My associate, once again, does a fantastic job. He's kind of the face of the practice. So he's the one seeing patients and doing all that. And we only stay open for patient care 2 days a week. And the reason being, once again, we're referral based. So we're not looking at walk-ins, because most walk-ins won't fit what we take. So we're mainly just appointment based only, 2 days a week. And yeah, just kind of managing it from there and realizing that this practice is not going to grow as fast as a general optometric practice is. We don't expect it to. Once again, the model is not for that to happen, just because there aren't. It'd be nice if there were that many specialty ones patients out there, but the reality is it's maybe 1 in 100 or 1 in 1,000 that an average OD sees as a specialty patient. So we just kind of deal with that, and we understand the statistics behind that.
Yeah. And in terms of your time as the owner and sort of the manager, Are you now including looking at the either the KPIs or the financials of this new practice, along with the same amount of time you would dedicate to looking at it with your current practice? How are you, are you separating your hat altogether between one practice and another? Like, how do you yourself as the owner look at the growth and the financial activity and the operational activity, everything inside of the practice between the two different practices?
Yeah, I definitely separate them out. So I'll do reviews. Normally, Friday is kind of my admin day, so I'll do reviews of both practices. And then actually, we just finished technically our first quarter. Q4 was our first quarter being in business. So we're going to have a review of that. Me and my associate will have a review of that and take a look at it, see what areas we need to improve on, what we can do to kind of continue our growth of the practice. So yeah, definitely separate them out though, and realize they're two very different animals in terms of how they work. So
yeah. What are some takeaways, having gone through this and you're still really going through it? I mean, you're still early on in getting this new business started. What are some lessons that you've learned that if another practice owner's listening and thinking about, should I go this same direction? What are some things that you've learned through that process that maybe you would have done differently, or some takeaways that you'd like to share?
Yeah, definitely. I would say number one, if you're going to participate on any insurance or vision care panel, get that started early on, because that took a lot longer than it should have. And it had been quite a few years since I had done that. It was 2016 was the last time I had to do that. And so that was definitely a process. So make sure to keep that. And then also build outs. If you're doing a build out, especially if you're cold start, that will always take longer than what you think. I would just add a couple months onto whatever your contractor says, because especially nowadays with everything in short supply and everything a lot more expensive than it used to be, that is always going to be an issue. Other than that, it's never too early to start marketing, even if you're not open yet. Start marketing to you. I think that's another thing we could have done a little bit quicker. When we reached out to different practices, we had already technically just opened. And I think if we had done that a few months earlier, then maybe we could have already had a referral list built up. Yeah. So that was and that was just a matter of timing. My associate, also a professor at Berkeley, does a lot of other things, does lecturing. So our timing wasn't matching up until kind of the late August, early September. So that's when we had to start. So we just kind of had to hit the ground and instantly start running. So yeah.
One thing that just came to mind is that, this is a show about, really about money. And I know you're involved heavily in helping optometrists to make good financial decisions. When you thought about your own financial decision making and what you could have done with your money, you could have made any number of investment decisions here instead of getting a new practice started. How did you think about that? When you thought about, okay, here are all my different options, here are my different business needs in my current practice. When you thought about your whole range of different options here in terms of building wealth and building your own investments, how did you think about getting the new practice started, versus everything else?
Yeah. Once again, a good question. I am a big fan of diversification. If you follow me on anything like Odie's on Finance, you know that I've got a few pieces of real estate, both residential and then also commercial, and then different business aspects, of course, the stock market, all of that. I like to be just kind of spread out amongst everything so I can, and I'm sure that's something that you preach as well. So, and then we thought about, hey, this is a different type of practice. It's something that hasn't been done before in California, and had the extra cash. It wasn't something that I was going to rely on for cash, and neither was my associate per se. It wasn't going to be like our sole source of income. So let's take a little risk here. Let's see what happens. In theory, the model should work based on what we were projecting would be our revenue per patient and what expenses were per month. Even it was funny, we calculated that even if we just saw 2 or 3 patients a month, we should still be able to just have a little bit of a net profit there. So that's kind of what pushed us forward when we really looked at the numbers and saw that, hey, this could actually work. And the risk factor as well, because I'm not a high risk taker. I don't like buying cryptocurrency or doing anything like that. I don't like going to casinos. So I'm more of someone that when I see something that works and we can have it work in perpetuity, that's what I like. So
got it. Yeah. Well, you do own 2 private businesses, so you are willing to take a little bit of risk, but it sounds it's measured, educated risk. It's definitely calculated risk. That's cool. I am a huge fan of diversification. It sounds like this is just an extension of you wanting to be a little bit more diversified. but also you saw a business opportunity. I mean, you saw a business opportunity, you put some numbers to it, you thought the model made sense, you thought it could be successful, and you were willing to part with that money at least and take a risk that to you made sense. So I like that. I really like the way you thought about that. And so you have two practices. You're involved in ODs on finance, like you said. So you have a lot of different things going on. What's next for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think right now, not going to open any more practices. So we're good for a little while here.
Okay.
But yeah, just continuing to grow. My main practice has been growing every year, and we want to continue that. We're adding a few new kind of in-house features that we can work with in our square footage. So dry eye spa, which we've actually figured out how to do in our practice, is going to be coming up next. So IPL and all of that is going to be added on
Cool.
there. So yeah, and then hoping to add another associate in the office as well. Once again, we're kind of space constrained, so we're going to have to extend hours and probably see me working a little less in patient care. And then Contact Lens Institute, we're just going to keep that going until my associate's on contract for about a year. And then we'll see after that if he wants to continue. If not, we have another doctor that was interested in starting. So we'll see how that goes. And then yeah, a lot of cool stuff coming from ODs on finance as well. A lot of things that we're really excited to bring to the OD community. So.
Very cool. And one last question as we wrap up here. And how would you define success in your own career? I mean, you have a lot of different things, like we just talked about, a lot of different things going on, both for the profession, for your community and your practices. I mean, how are you defining success for yourself?
Yeah, success, I don't really define it as financial, even though a lot of people that might have read stuff that I wrote think it's financial. Really, it's being happy and being fulfilled. And that's something that I find by working harder. I think that's what really drives me. I know it's a little strange to say that, but the more I work and the more I start to build things, and the more I see the benefit that both patients and other ODs get from what we're doing. It's not just me. It's a collective effort of many individuals. When we talk about these businesses, that's what really makes me happy and what really makes me fulfilled when it comes to my career.
Yeah, well, that's very cool. I mean, in all the content you're creating, everything you're involved in, I can see that. I can see that sort of passion and that sort of a joy in creating that you have there. As we wrap up here, how can people find you, follow you, learn more about what you're doing?
Yeah, definitely. So my main practice, Los Altos Optometry Group, losaltoseyes.com. I just jump on that website. If you're an OD, join ODs on Finance, odsonfinance.com, and the Facebook group is where all the conversation happens. And then Contact Lens Institute, contactlensinstitute.net, if you want to learn more about that. And otherwise, my email, aneufeld@gmail.com. Happy to just talk about any and everything related to optometry.
Yeah, this has been fun. Aaron, I really appreciate it. This has been awesome. And we'll put all of that in the show notes. Make sure if anyone has questions on today's topic or anything we talked about, feel free to reach out to either of us here. And with that, we will catch you on the next episode. In the meantime, take care.
Want more resources to help master your money? Check out the Education Hub on Evon's website at optometrywealth.com. Evon Mendrin is a certified financial planner and owner of Optometry Wealth Advisors, a California registered investment advisor. All opinions of Evon and his guests are their own. This show is for informational purposes only and should not be relied on for specific investment, legal, tax, or other decisions. Clients of OWA may own securities mentioned on this show.